Hello and welcome back to Tiger Drop Films, yes. Now, the reason I'm in front of the camera for this video is because since Like a Dragon Gaiden had live action hostesses, I thought for this video you guys have a live action me. Yeah! But anyway, topic of today's video is my top 10 Yakuza antagonists. Now, I chose antagonists instead of just saying villains because a lot of these guys are not really villains to the end, they redeem themselves in some way, or maybe they're just some kind of obstacle force, but not every one of these guys in my list did something villainous, and maybe you'll see what I mean.
Yoshi yoshi.
Alright, at the number 10 spot I have Lao Goi. Now this guy, there's not a lot to him personality-wise, but that's okay. Because Lao Goi is a guy who really kickstarted the plot of Yakuza 0 with the murder of that one guy Kiryu beat up in the empty lot. And Lao Goi, you don't see him till the tail end of the game where I think shoots Kiryu and then he fights Majima for his final fight. But it's just a great fight. He's an obstacle, he's like the greatest assassin in China in the 80s. And overall Lao Goi was just a great fight. And he just needed to be that. He was a stand-in for Dojima himself, since Majima couldn't fight him directly, but he could fight Lao Goi. And it was great as Majima to get revenge for Makoto getting shot. And overall, Lao Goi is just a great fight. And then next I have Hirose from Yakuza 6. Old man Hirose. Now, he definitely was not a villain, but the cards were against him. He had to fight for Owami and the secret Unamichi due to Hirose being raised by the old Owami. And his fight wasn't super hard, but it was unique because Hirose was a killer, but not like a pure evil killer. He did the dirty work in order to keep the secret Unamichi safe. And fighting was Kiryu, and then seeing how the Hirose boys, his clan, reacts to all the secrets that are revealed, it was heartbreaking, man. And for Kiryu himself to be reminded of the time he lost Shintaro Kazuma, with Hirose dying in Nagumo's arms, it was hard to watch, man. But Hirose was very memorable. After all, he's based off a famous Japanese director. And I felt like he was a real highlight of Yakuza 6 and its themes for fatherhood, so that's why he's on this list. Number 8, we have Torada, aka Daijin Kim, the big secret man of the Jingwan Mafia from Yakuza 2, and I put Torada on this list because I really liked how Torada was in Yakuza 1, any guy who helped Kiryu try to fight Jingu is a decent guy in my book, and I was honestly shocked when in Yakuza 2 it was revealed that Torada was a secret Korean, and not just that, but the secret boss of the G1 Mafia, and he had a connection to Shintaro Kazuma himself. I think I talked about this a little bit in my that time Kiryu fought his father in Yakuza 3 essay, you should check that out, but the Torada fight was just very unique. He had a submachine gun, and there was obstacles falling from the construction site, and with either version of 2 that you play, he has 2 badass themes. And I really liked how Torada wasn't necessarily evil, he was just, this big antagonist who was put in position as the Tojo chairman by Kiryu, and it's just, there's something very personal about him and Kiryu, and I just think it was interesting, especially a guy who was in 2 games, including the little bit in Majima Saga. I just liked that Torada was the leader of this secret opposing force that had connections to Kiryu, and I felt like he really did help tie the plot together. And so that's why I like Torada as an antagonist. And next we have Shindo. Shindo, the MILF hunter himself. I debated putting him on this list, but I had to put him at the number 7 spot because you can't forget this guy. He just pulls up and tries to kiss Yaoi Dojima, Daigo's mom, and he just has a great fight that Kiryu has to put a stop to. It's just, it's silly, but it's memorable, and he was also another character that was in Yakuza 1. I think that's why I really like the story of Yakuza 2 so much. It just felt like a natural progression of this one story, while also bringing back characters and not making it feel like they're just reusing these characters because they had them. It made sense for the story they were telling. I think Shindo really exemplifies that. He's a goofy fight with a katana, and it's cool, but he's a goofy character. But he also represents another inclusion of the Nishikiyama family. And I think for Kiryu to fight the Nishiki family in 2 and 3 is very important because he's still dealing with the outer effects of his late brother's demise. And I'll just say this, I did not include Nishiki on this list because for me, he'll always be Kiryu's best friend, and I always associate him with Ichiban now. But, Nishiki was a great villain. I just think he was one that was so personal. It was hard for me to put Nishiki on this list as an antagonist. But instead I put Shindo because I felt like he was just not redeemable, but he was goofy enough to have a laugh at him and just see how devastating the effects of Nishiki's reign in 1 was still affecting the Tojo clan in different entries. Next we have Someya from Yakuza 6 The Song of Life. Someya really grew on me. I thought he was kind of snotty at first in this first fight in that hotel, but the more you got to fight him as Kiryu and spend more time with him and learn about his connection with Kiyomi, I really liked Someya. And he had an interesting dynamic of being a new generation Yakuza that did not have a tattoo or did not have Irizumi, but I just felt like he was a great inclusion of 6. I honestly thought he was going to be the main villain until little baby Awami came into the picture. You can see my video on Awami. But Someya was a great highlight, and he was definitely more antagonistic than straight villain because I felt bad for him when he was sadly had to sacrifice himself. And his death really upped the stakes in the plot. But overall, he's a character that I thought was just brilliant. And the cool thing about Someya is that his actor was the pilot for Mechagodzilla and Godzilla vs. Kong. So, a little tidbit of that. But Someya was a stellar antagonist. And he's a reason why Yakuza antagonists are so great. At number 5 spot, we have Mine, the fan favorite. And a favorite of mine. Now, Mine was a very interesting antagonist. I really hated him. I hated him when he tore down Morning Glory of Tamashiro. But somehow I felt bad for the guy in his final moments after he fought Kiryu. And I think that's just a testament to how great the writing is in these games. They bridge the gap between film, games, music, and so much more. And that's just why it's my favorite franchise. I think Mine is a great example of why people love the series, including myself. And Mine just felt like a character who is very real. A lot of people might feel lonely, especially in the day and age we live in. And I think Mine was just an example of that. He was lonely, and it just led him down not really a dark path, but definitely one of resentment. And I was glad that in his final moments, Kiryu was able to help Mine sort of redeem himself. At the number 4 spot, we have Ryo Aoki, aka Masato Arakawa. Now, this guy, he was also very despicable. I felt bad for him, of course, because he was in a wheelchair when we first met him. And then his girl leaves him for that police guy. And then we learn that he got assaulted that night of New Year's Eve, and which led to the events of 7 happening for Ichiban. But, Masato Arakawa, he was a very fascinating villain. He was a politician. He was going to be governor. What other Yakuza game was you fight a governor runner-up? That set the stakes so high, and I just felt like Ichiban truly trying to get through to Arakawa, trying to dismantle his Ryo Aoki persona and try to see the brother that he knew he was. It felt so heartbreaking, man. Because in that final fight with Arakawa, he's not Ryo Aoki anymore, he's just Masato Arakawa. And the fact that Ichiban was fighting not the villain, not the antagonist, not the opposing force, he was just fighting for his brother. And in classic Yakuza fashion, the villain was somewhat redeemed, but obviously it was too late as karma got back to Arakawa. But the fact that Ichiban was able to get through him just for a little bit, it just made the game completely stellar. At the number 3 spot, we have Kuze, big man himself, the boxer. Mr. Motorcycle, Mr. How many times did they teach you this lesson, old man? And, what can I say? Kuze was the first boss that I had fought because I started at 0. And he's left an impression on you, man. Like, when you first fight him, he's in that, Yakuza lieutenant room, with the mats and the paper walls, the paintings. It's a very beautiful room, but it's one you just can't forget. And the fact that the final boss in Gaiden started in a similar room was fantastic. It was coincidentally a callback to Kuze, and for me at least. But Kuze, you fight him like 5 times, his actor is incredible, he leaves an impression on you, and by the end, you really felt like he was pivotal in making Kiryu who he is. And Kuze was just incredible. What can I say? He was relentless, admirable, vicious, but you can't hate him. He was really a true Yakuza. And that's why he's number 3 on my list. At number 2, we have Shimano. Now, hear me out, okay? If you look at the chronological release order of the Yakuza series, Shimano was the first boss you fight that shows up as Irizumi. And even when I played Kiwami 1, just something about Shimano that was gripping, because he was horrible. He was part of why Majima had to take the actions he did in 0, and then Shimano also led Nishiki. He hankered Nishiki on, he put, bad words in his ear, bad thoughts, and he kind of helped develop Nishiki as a villain. And then in Yakuza 2, we see a bit more of Shimano, how different he was as Shintaro Kazuma in the Jingwan Massacre. But to back up a little bit, back in 0, Sagawa, who, as we know, was a very important part in Majima's half of the game, he was Shimano's brother, or oath brother, and Shimano ended up getting him killed in the end. He ordered his execution. And Shimano is just a beast. He's terrible. And he also caused the death of Shintaro Kazuma, a death that really affected Kiryu. And I think Shimano is just the definition of this imposing, what you would imagine a Yakuza force to be. He's big, he's ugly, and he's got the Irizumi of a tiger. And I just think Shimano is just a simple, horrible guy that you just want to beat up. And that's why he's number 2 on my spot. He's just one of those guys I can't forget. Which leads me to my number 1 favorite Yakuza antagonist. And for my number 1 spot, for my number 1 favorite Yakuza antagonist, you see my Comparing the Dragons of Yakuza video essay, then you know who it is. The man who said the real man ought to be a little stupid. Ryuji Goda, the Dragon of Kanzai. Mr. Blonde himself. I love Ryuji Goda. Just because he's so charismatic, and you just can't forget the guy. Really, you can't. Like, if Nishiki was a tragic villain for Kiryu, and Mine was the dragon killer, then Ryuji was the perfect guy to be the equal. Now, yes, Kiryu definitely beat him, and even in their first fight, but I think that's the point. Ryuji Goda was a bit younger than Kiryu, but he was rising as his own dragon, his own legend. And there's so many scenes I can talk about, from when he kills Sengoku and saves Haruka, to the club scene, even Ryuji's attack at Terada's funeral, there's so many scenes of him that I just can't forget. You know, Goda is a great villain. And there's just a reason fans love him so much. So much so that whenever we get a little bit more of Ryuji, like in the Majima Saga, he had a little scene, or in that cameo in Zero, or his role in Ishin, which was just pure wonderful fan service. And you know, I want to play Dead Souls just for Ryuji. But if you've played Gaiden, you know that they reference Ryuji a lot, on purpose too, for the whole idea of Kiryu and his own identity as Kazama Kiryu. But the fact that they were able to use Ryuji in that game in a few different times to really sell the point of that narrative, it just made me appreciate the character of Ryuji Goda even more. And whenever I also think of Ryuji, I think of his final moments. He went out the way he wanted to go out, he took down villains worse than him, and he just showed how much of a true man he was. You know, he saved his sister Sayama, and that scene in his final moments where Ryuji's like, he tells Sayama that she's got the same smile as her mother, that smile that can take away all your worry, that just broke me, man. Like, it's just, he's such an interesting villain. That's just plain how it is. And he's a guy who, even though he's an antagonist, was he a terrible person? I don't think so. He just wanted to show the world who he was. And that's why Ryuji Goda is my favorite Yakuza antagonist. A dragon who is definitely, I will say, equal to Kiryu in some regards. And probably the only other character in the franchise that deserves to have a true Dragon Irizumi, besides Ichiban, because Ichiban deserves it too. But yep, there you go. That does it for the Tiger Drop Films Top 10 Yakuza Antagonists. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I dressed up a little nice for this one. But I got more videos on the way. And after playing the wonderful Like a Dragon Gaiden, I just had to get this little video out. I had to get it off my chest. But my favorite antagonist. So yeah, thank you for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one, because I got some good things cooking. Yakuza and other topics, so stay tuned.